Hello and welcome to this session. And in this session, we are going to discuss the pivot tables. The basic question that comes up, why do we need to learn pivot tables? In business or in your profession, you may require to create reports from data sets like this one. Several times, when we require some drill down reports from these, creating reports within the click of a button or with simple drag and drop options, your job becomes quite easy. But if you know those tips and tricks, probably you can save a lot of time and win some brownie points. You can create some impression. But if you are not aware of those tools which are handy to create some awe inspiring reports, probably you will not be able to succeed, and in some cases, you may not be able to get the financial rewards that probably you deserve. So, learning pivot tables can give you those tips, tricks, and tools using which you can create some awe inspiring, beautiful reports with ease. So that's the agenda why we need pivot tables. Okay, so pivot tables are one of those basic grounding essential tools in Excel which help you to create simple, easy, and convenient reports very easily, effectively, and efficiently. So I always keep telling Excel is a powerhouse of tools, productivity tools, and you need to master them. So the most essential one, I believe, is the pivot tables. So today, that is the agenda of learning the pivot tables, and I will give you all the basics that you require to build those reports using pivot tables. So initially, when I need to start using pivot tables, what should be the process, right? That's what the question comes into your mind, that how should I start working with pivot tables? So first and foremost, this is the data that I have. So you can see the data talks about a company, then you have the name of the company, the region from where you get the sales, the sales document number, then you have document date, the customer ID, the customer name, I think, yeah, customer code, the customer name, the product code, product description, and the quantity that was sold to that customer, and the revenue or the sale value that was generated. So this is a very common kind of a data that you probably would see almost every day in your jobs. So I need to initiate, or I need to start working using the pivot tables. Okay, so first and foremost, when I start the pivot table, the first step is go to your insert tab, click on insert, and you have this pivot table, right? So before you start, there are some checks that you need to ensure. First and foremost, you need to have a table of data, right? So the way that I have with rows and columns. So the formatting of, you need to have the right format of your data. That's the first essential requirement. Number two, you should see that there are no blank rows or columns. Okay. Number three, you need to see all your columns are labeled. That's very essential. Number four, ensure that you do not have any totals for any columns. Okay. So these are the four checkpoints that you need to ensure that your data is in the right format. It has the rows and columns. Number three, the columns are labeled properly. There are no blank rows or columns. And number five, you do not have any totals for columns, right? So once you have ensured that, you can start with your pivot tables. So go to the insert tab and you have this table option. Before you click on the table, ensure that you have clicked somewhere within the data. Okay, like any of this cell, you can click on it, and that's how you can activate your pivot tables. So I click on the pivot table and you would see this, the table or range. Now you can see this, it's sheet 1 and column A1, that is cell A1 till cell K106. Okay, so the data that I have ranges between these cells, ranges within this cell. So this is hard coded that way. But there's a limitation you need to understand. Whenever you update your data, whenever you need to add some rows or columns in your data, your pivot tables or the reports that you have generated won't get updated. So this is one big limitation. So I would not like to follow this option. I see this restriction that it will pick the data only within these cells. That's a big limitation. So avoid this step. So for the time being, I cancel this. Okay. So now what next? What should I do? You can see this. I have this table option, right? So I need to convert this data into a table. Okay. So click on this table. Now see, it picked up the data. Okay. And it has also picked up my table has headers. It's able to detect that. I say, okay. Now you can see your table, the data is transformed into a table. Now it has done its own formatting with some shading for some of the rows. If you like it, proceed, go ahead with this. If you don't like it, no issues. You can go to your table and select the table style of your choice. I would go with a blank one as it was earlier. So fine. Now this is a table. Okay. Another important thing that you need to do once you start is with this. It's written table 2. Rename it with any name that makes it easy and convenient for you to search for your table or reports. Okay. It's easy if you give a very convenient name so that you can search it in your computer whenever you need it. So this file becomes easily accessible. So let us name it as T sales. So now this is the name that I've given. Now good enough. So this is the name for your table now. Fine. Now again I go back. I say insert and I have option pivot table. Before I get into pivot table, you can also go to recommended tables. Okay. There's another option, recommended tables, which I'll come at the end of this video. Okay. So for the time being, I would initiate the pivot tables. Now when I say this, now observe this. In this table and range, earlier it was only some cells that were getting selected, but now it's picking up the entire table. So whenever you refresh data in your sheet or when you update data in your sheet, the entire table gets updated. Okay. So the reports that you have generated would be dynamic. Fine. So I say, okay, now you have your pivot tables initiated and you could see the pivot fields, the pivot table fields with all the column names, the labels of columns appearing over here. Fine. So in the next segment, I will discuss what next, what to do. Fine. Now once your pivot table is activated, you could see that you have the pivot table fields. Now you can see all the column names that you have from your data set. And below that you have the areas for filter, columns, rows and values. Now this is the default layout. If you are happy with this, you can start working on your pivot tables just with this kind of a setup. But if you are not so comfortable, there are various layouts which Excel provides. You can use any one of them as per your convenience, right? So how to change the layout? So you have this cog sign over here. From the drop down, select any format in which you would like your fields to appear. So drop it down. This is the default one. And then the field sections and area sections side by side. This is another view. You can just try this if you feel it's comfortable. And in fact, this is more comfortable if you feel or if you have a lot of columns in your data set and you could see the various column names. There is a lot of space for that and you don't have to scroll it up and down. So that makes things very convenient and all these areas are presented to you together, right? So you can just drag and drop as per your convenience. So this is second one And I believe this is one of the most preferred format or layout in which you can use your fields. The third view that you have is the field section only. Okay, so this is not that useful because probably we would require both the things to, alter and create new reports. So the same way, you have this area section only, that is 2 by 2, and this area section only 1 by 4. So these formats, probably I'll just show you how they look, but they are hardly of much use. So you can see this is only the fields. Likewise, you can have the area section 2 by 2. So you have the areas only, you don't have the fields, that is the various columns or variables in your data. Likewise, the area section only 1 by 4. You could see this is another one. Okay, so for this entire demonstration, I'll be using this format. Fine. So where I have all my areas and at the same time all the fields. So that will help me create my reports the way I wish. Fine. Now, once you have chosen the desired format or the layout, I would like to answer a few questions about my customer. Right? That would be interesting. That's the entire purpose, right? So let us see. I have the customer name. Just take it and drop it into your rows. Boom. And you can see now your customer names appear over here. I would like to see the sales. Now take your sales value and drop it into the values. Now you could see the exact sum of sales done by these customers. Okay, how much of revenue these customers have generated for our business. So these 4 customers, the sales values and the total value. Now the default aggregation is done using the sum, but if you wish to have count or average, anything else, you can do it. How? Let us see. Just do a right mouse click. When you are using pivot tables, the right mouse click is going to help you a lot. Now you can see I have an option called summarize values by. Now I have sum. If I want to have the count, I simply go and say count. Now it's changed. So the sales, the number of orders placed by each customer appears over here. I want to see the average revenue generated through these customers. So again, right click, I would say summarize values by, I would say average, right? So this is the average revenue generated by these customers. Further, if I wish to, I wish to have 1,000 separator. If I want to do that, you can do that. Now, simple, again, right mouse click, and then you can have this number format. Okay, don't get confused with format cell. You have to go for number format. Click on number format. The default is general. Go to number and then use 1,000 separator. Select this. It takes a default 2 decimal place. I would reduce it to 0 and click on OK. So now you have the 1,000 separators and the decimal values have been removed. So this is how you can work with the customer data and get to know more insights. What is the value of sales, the number of orders placed by these customers, what is the average revenue generated through these customers. So such kind of questions can be easily answered using these basic simple steps. Right? Understood? Now working further with this same customer report, I'm answering a few questions based on the customer. Now I wish to filter this report based on the geographic location or region. You can do that. So if I want to apply that geographic filtering, how could I do that? I have this region, drop it into filters. Now you have a filter which is created over here, and right now it's all. So whatever the filters are there, all of them have been included. But if I wish to go and check only America, so select America and click on OK. So this is the report for only America. So I have only 2 customers from America, And if I want to see the same thing for Europe, so click on Europe and select OK. So you get the report for Europe. So this is how you can do filtering based on the region. So that makes things very convenient to pick the customers from various regions. So you can see how easily you are in a position to create such impressive reports and so easily. At times, you may not be willing to apply a filter. Rather, you would like to have the data based on a region always, and you want to ponder upon it, take some decisions, so you don't want to keep on filtering the data again and again. So what you can do, you can rearrange the same report in a different format. How do we do it? So I've removed the region from my filter, and same way I would drop my region into columns. So that would create new columns, that is for various region. One is for America and the other one is for Europe. So I get to know which customer is from which region and how much of revenue or how much of sales is generated through each customer. Perfect. So this is how things are so handy. You can easily create customized reports according to your need and requirement just with simple drag and drop options, or what I would say with the snap of a finger. So once the problem with my customer based on region is sorted out, I am able to get all the information that is required. Now I may need to create multi-level reports where I would like to see the subdivision or various levels under each customer, like what products they have purchased. So you can do that again at the snap of a finger. Let's see how to do that. So let us say I have this product description. Take that product description and drop it into your rows again. So boom, you can see that. Now under each customer, the various products purchased by the customer can be easily seen. So these were the products purchased by Ida. These were the products purchased by Delicia. And the best part, you also get the subtotals, right, for each customer over here itself. So Ida, the subtotal of all the products purchased by her appear over here, and the grand total appears over here. So that's again a beautiful thing. So this makes things very handy for you, and it becomes very easy for you to create reports. Right now, again, further, once you have created these reports, there are a lot of cosmetic features which I would say available in your pivot tables itself that makes things very handy, and you can prepare cool looking reports as and when you require. So you can play around with them, and this can be done through experimentation itself. You can see, just you can click on any of them and you can just create fancy reports as per your requirement, right? You can see there are various styles, various things which are already embedded. So I would say these are cosmetic things, and it would vary as per your taste. So the only thing over here is you need to experiment. The more you experiment, you get to know these cosmetic things much better. And again, as I said, this is according to your preference. So you can access all these designs from this design tab, and you can access any of these designs according to your requirement. Perfect. Now once you have created this report, you can see that you get to know the sub-level information of each customer. Now at times you may need to collapse or expand information as per your requirement. So how to do that? That's again a very important thing to know. So you could see along with all the customers where some sub hierarchies have been created, you have these small little boxes or icons. So once you click them, it will collapse. When you see this minus sign, it will collapse, right? You can see now it is collapsed. I can collapse it for Delicia. I can collapse it for Emma. I can collapse it for Liber. Fine. So you now have the parent level information only. So for any customer, if you need to know the drill down or the broken down subcategories under each parent level information, simply click on this plus icon and you can open whatever information is available. Same thing goes with Delicia, same thing goes for Irma, and the same thing for Liber. Perfect. Now, another important thing, if you wish to, do away with these icons, you have this. You have to see this pivot table analyze tab and you have this plus minus buttons. So simply click on this and you could see all that collapsible controls have vanished. If you want to get them back, again click on that and you get your controls back. So this helps you to expand or collapse your sub-level or multi-level information as and when you require. This is again going to be a very handy tool. Learn to use it through practice. After doing a lot of things with your customer, now for instance, let us say you do not require a particular field further in your reports. What you can do? You can simply, for instance, right now, I don't require the product description further. So what I can do is I can simply drag the product description and bring it back to the original fields. You can see now product description and below that there is a red cross which is appearing. Simply do that and you can see the product description has gone. Okay. Now what you can do further, what else you can do? At this point of a time, another thing that I could have done, like I have product description, I'm bringing it back again. I could have simply dragged, I can simply drag this and drop it somewhere in this spreadsheet, then also you lose it. Okay. Next, I don't like my region. I'll do the same. I remove the region now. I have a simple basic table now. Okay. So now the next thing, what I wish to do over here. Many a times in your pivot tables, the names of the columns that you have in your reports are far less than desirable. So at times you may have to change the names as per your need. But remember that many a times, okay, Excel doesn't like or pivot tables do not like when there is a conflict with the name that you are providing with the name of a field already being used. So ensure that you choose a name which is not in conflict with any of the other field names, point number one, or else you can add a space before or after the name that you are using to avoid any kind of a conflict. So if I simply want to get this as a revenue, okay, over here, if I just simply want revenue over here, so I can change it. Okay, so now you have a column name which is called revenue. Likewise, over here it's row labels. I can change it to customer. Okay, you already have customer name and customer code, so I'll keep it simply as customer. Double click and you can change the name. So I can simply say customer. So this is quite easy and you can rename any of the column names to make your report more descriptive. Perfect. After renaming the columns as per your desired choice, what you can do if you wish to know the customers according to the revenue they are generating, okay, you would require to sort them. So how would you sort them? That's again quite easy. You can simply click on the revenue, right click for the mouse, and then you can sort. You have the sort option. So you can have the sorting from smallest to largest or largest to smallest as per your requirement. It's quite simple. Now simply I want it from largest to smallest because I would like to know my most profitable customer. So once I do that, you get your sorting done. So that's again quite easy, quite handy. Correct? So that makes sorting quite easy. So this makes the Excel tool, the pivot table, very, very useful for you. Another small little formatting option which is not quite often used but it may come handy. You have to understand that your pivot tables, usually the width of the columns are automatically controlled. So whenever you have content which is wider, the columns automatically become wider and as per the content in those columns. But if you want to keep that control within your hands and you wish to do it manually, simply go to this pivot table analyze tab, and then over here under the name of your file you have this tab options. So select options. You have this auto fit column width on update. So if you want to make it manual, just uncheck this box, and if you want things to be or the width of the columns to be updated automatically, let this be checked. So this is quite a simple tool. Sometimes it gets handy. So if you want to keep the control in your hands or let Excel do it, it's your choice. I'm just giving you this option which is available. At times you may need it, you may need to know this. Okay, so this is important. Make a note of it. Once after the formatting and all are done, you may require some aggregations, you may require some calculations. If you recall, we had created the revenue as an average, right? We had summarized this as an average. So this column demonstrates the average revenue generated by each customer, but you may require further information on like what is the total sales, what is the total revenue generated by each customer. So you may have further aggregations. For instance, if I want to know the total sales generated by each customer, not just the revenue, average revenue. So simply do the same thing. Click on this sales and drag and drop it over here. And you have the sum of the sales, right? So the total sales or total revenue generated by each customer is visible in the next column. Fine. So the same way, if you want a percentage to appear, okay? So I can do the same thing. I can bring the sales over here and I have this drop down. I click on this and you have this value field settings. So I select this value field settings. Okay. In this, you can just see summarize values by. We have done that earlier. Now, if I want to show the value as something, right now I want to show it as a percentage of the grand total. So show value as, right now by default it's no calculation. I want it as a percentage of the grand total. Means from the total sales that are happening, what percentage of sales are contributed by each customer. So I do that, select it, I say okay. So now you have the percentage contribution from each customer. So this way you can do it. Another way of doing the same thing, okay, I have taught you how to remove the field. So I'm just removing it field just to show you another method of doing it. So I just drag and drop it once again. So I get the sales over here. As I told you, the right mouse click is going to be very useful when working with pivot tables. So right click and then you have this value field settings once again. So this is another way of reaching to value field settings simply by a right click. So select this the same way, show values as. By default it's no calculations. I say percentage of grand total, select it and say okay. Now you have the percentage. Fine. So this is another method of doing the same thing. So whenever you require additional aggregations, you simply drop those columns into your values and perform whatever calculations and representations as you require. Quite easy, right? Till now we have been working on a static data. At times you will be making some additions, deletions to your data. The original data that we had, this is the data. So some data could be added to it, some data could be modified to it. So whenever such changes are happening, now you can simply update your data, and the same thing will reflect in your pivot tables as well. So in this segment, I'm trying to tell you how you can update your data. There are several ways. One way, the first way, again, our handy right click. So do a right mouse click and you have a refresh tab over here. Just click on refresh, your data gets refreshed. Okay, this is the method number 1. Method number 2, you can go to the pivot table analyze tab, and just beneath that you can see this refresh. Click on this, your data will get refreshed. So this was method number 2. Method number 3, you have this data tab, click on data tab, and again you have the refresh button. So click on that, your data gets refreshed. So there are 3 ways to refresh your data and update your pivot tables as and when any changes happen to your source data. Another interesting tool that you have within your pivot tables. For instance, I need to know the complete details of any individual customer on a different sheet. How do we do that? That's again a very tricky question. So once you have created this small little report, I want the further details of any particular customer on a new sheet, so that entire sheet becomes dedicated to one particular customer. You can simply click on a cell, like for example, I have this customer LIBOR. Now I want complete details about this customer. So I go to this cell and do a double click. Now you can see I have a complete sheet with all the details about my customer LIBOR. Okay, so you can rename this sheet and dedicatedly keep it for LIBOR. Fine. So this is one very handy tool that is available in your pivot tables, and you can use it as and when you require. Perfect. Now once we have learned so many things about pivot tables, there's another very beautiful function that you need to know. That is the slicer. Now you can use a slicer for filtering your data, and the biggest advantage of using a slicer is it's not just like the traditional filter, it just filters what is there in your report. But a slicer, what it does is it manipulates the back end of the data, and you can apply a filter on any data, okay, any variable, and it manipulates the back end of your data, the original data, and accordingly presents the information on your report, whether that filter is there in your report or not. Irrespective of that, the slicer can manipulate your data and present the required information for you. So that's going to be a very powerful thing. So learn to use it. How do we do that? For instance, I would like to apply a geographic filtering to the same report. Go to your insert. You have this function slicer. Go to slicer, click it, and you can apply your slicer based on any of these. Okay. For instance, let us say I take region. I say OK. Now once I have this, now things become very interactive. Now I just simply want to see the sales generated from American region. So click on America. Now this is what the sales generated from America. I say Europe, so you get Europe. You want both, select both, you have both. Okay. So you can see that the report did not have region anywhere. But now what this slicer is capable of doing is it's manipulating the backend data and presenting it in your report, which an ordinary filter cannot do. So slicer becomes very handy, very useful and powerful, because it can manipulate the backend data and present the reports. Beautiful and interesting. Now that you have learned a lot of things or the basic fundamentals of your pivot tables, I would take you to the last aspect, which, if you remember, I told you I'll show it in the last. So for the time being, I remove my slicer over here. I get back to my original data. Okay, this is my original data. I told you in the beginning that I would show you an alternate way of creating your pivot tables, right? So go to insert, and you can see this recommended pivot tables. So these are some templates which are already generated by Excel, and you can use any of them as per your requirement. You can see the recommended pivot tables. So the Excel has generated these templates automatically for you, and you can select any one of them and start using. So for example, let us say customer wise, okay, I have this information. Let us start with this. So select and say OK. Now this report is automatically generated for you. And further, you want any manipulations done, you can drag and drop various fields in those areas and create reports as per your requirement. So this is again a very beautiful and handy function to make your things quick and fast and also efficient, right? So now I believe that you have sufficient tools in your armory that you can start using pivot tables. And I believe that more you practice, you become more proficient with all the tools and the features that pivot tables present. So this can make your work very interesting and at the same time efficient. You can save a lot of time, and your superiors or your colleagues, both of them would be impressed by the way you create fancy reports in a jiffy. Thank you for watching. Do spread the good word and stay safe.